My roommate stole my orange juice for 6 months and ignored 20 warnings, so I mixed ghost pepper extract in it. He ended up in the ER, then sued me for $50,000. I put ghost pepper extract in my own orange juice after 6 months of politely asking my roommate to stop taking it, and when they drank it at 3 in the morning and ended up in the emergency room, suddenly I was the villain for protecting my groceries even though I'd warned them 20 times to stop. But what really made me realize how far this had gone was sitting in a courtroom listening to my former roommate demand $50,000 because they couldn't respect basic boundaries and paid the price for their own choices. The roommate situation started out fine. David responded to my ad looking for someone to split rent on a 2-bedroom apartment. Seemed normal enough. Had a steady job. Didn't have obvious red flags. We signed the lease in August. Moved in September 1st. Everything was great for exactly 3 weeks. Then I noticed my orange juice was disappearing faster than I was drinking it. Not all at once. Just a glass here and there. I'd buy a carton on Monday. By Wednesday it would be half gone when I'd only had 1 glass. By Friday it would be empty. I thought maybe I was miscalculating. Maybe I was drinking more than I remembered. So I started keeping track. Wrote down every glass I poured. Marked the level on the bottle with a marker. Sure enough. The juice was disappearing between the lines I'd drawn. David was drinking my orange juice. I approached it casually at first. We were standing in the kitchen one morning. Both getting ready for work. "Hey, have you been drinking my orange juice?" He looked at me. Shrugged. "Maybe? I don't know. Is it a big deal?" "I mean, I'd prefer if you bought your own. It's $15 a bottle. The organic kind." $15? For orange juice? It's the kind I like. No sugar added. Fresh pressed. But yeah, it's expensive. That's why I'd prefer you didn't drink it. Okay. Sure. My bad. Problem solved. Or so I thought. The next week, it happened again. Bottle I'd bought Monday was gone by Thursday. I'd had 2 glasses. Someone else had finished the rest. "David. You're still drinking my juice." "Am I? I don't remember doing that." "Well, someone is. And we're the only 2 people who live here. Maybe you're drinking more than you think." "I'm marking the bottle. I know exactly how much I'm drinking. And you're drinking the rest." He laughed. Actually laughed. "Dude, it's orange juice. Relax. It's my orange juice that I paid for. I asked you not to drink it. And I said I wouldn't. If I did, it wasn't on purpose. I'll be more careful." Week 3. Same thing. Juice disappearing. I confronted him again. "David, seriously. This is the 3rd week in a row." Okay. I'll buy you a new bottle. I don't want you to buy me a new bottle. I want you to stop drinking mine. Why are you being so weird about orange juice? Because I keep asking you to stop and you keep doing it. It's about respect. Not orange juice. It's literally orange juice. It's not that serious. But it was that serious. Not because of the juice. Because of the principle. I'd asked him politely. Multiple times. And he kept ignoring my request and acting like I was unreasonable for being upset. I started keeping my juice in my room. Bought a mini fridge. Kept it in there. Problem solved. Except now I had to walk to my room every time I wanted juice. In my own apartment. Because my roommate couldn't respect basic boundaries. After 2 weeks of that, I thought maybe enough time had passed. Maybe David had learned. I put the juice back in the kitchen fridge. Gone within 3 days. "David." "What?" "The juice. Again." "Oh. Yeah. Sorry. I forgot it was yours." "How did you forget? We've had this conversation 6 times. "I don't know, man. I wasn't thinking. I was thirsty. The juice was there. I drank it. But it's not your juice. I'll buy you another one." "I don't want another one. I want you to stop taking mine." "Okay. Sheesh. Why are you yelling?" "Because you're not listening. I've asked you nicely. Multiple times. And you keep doing it. It's not that deep." "It is that deep. It's about boundaries. About respecting other people's stuff. About listening when someone asks you to stop doing something." He rolled his eyes. Walked away. Left me standing in the kitchen furious and frustrated. I documented everything. Every time I bought juice. Every time it disappeared. Every conversation we had. Took pictures of the marked bottles. Screenshots of my purchase history. Built a case of evidence proving this was a pattern. I showed David the documentation. "Look. This has been going on for 4 months. 20 separate times I've asked you to stop. 20 times you've said you would. And 20 times you've done it again." He looked at the evidence. Shrugged. "Man, you're really obsessed with this orange juice thing. Because you won't stop. Because it's orange juice. It's not like I'm taking your money or wrecking your stuff. It's a drink. That I pay for. That you keep taking. After I repeatedly ask you not to." "Fine. I'll stop. For real this time." He didn't stop. Week after that conversation, juice gone again. I didn't even confront him. Just sat in my room staring at the empty bottle, wondering what kind of person ignores 20 direct requests from their roommate. My friend Marcus came over. Saw the documentation I'd been keeping. The photos. The purchase records. The timeline. Dude, why don't you just put something in it? Teach him a lesson. Like what? I don't know. Laxatives. Hot pepper. Something that'll make him regret taking your stuff. I laughed it off. But the idea stuck in my head. What if I did? What if I made the juice undrinkable for anyone but me? What if I finally made there be consequences for David's complete disrespect? I researched it. Found out that chest trapping food is actually not lawful in most places. You can't deliberately put harmful substances in food with the intent of causing harm to someone who takes it. But you can put things in your own food that you personally intend to consume. If someone else takes it and gets hurt, that's on them for taking food that wasn't theirs. The distinction mattered. I bought ghost pepper extract. The serious kind. The kind that comes with warnings. The kind that's measured in Scoville units I couldn't even comprehend. The kind that people use one drop at a time in massive pots of chili. I mixed an entire dropper full into a new bottle of orange juice. Shook it up. Put it in the fridge. Put a note on it. Do not drink, extremely spicy, David, this means you. Clear warning. Clear label. My food. My fridge. My apartment. If David respected boundaries, he wouldn't drink it. If he didn't respect boundaries, well, he'd learn a lesson. 3 days went by. The juice sat untouched. I started to think maybe the note had actually worked. Maybe David had finally listened. Then I woke up at 3 a.m. to screaming. Blood-curdling, absolutely terrified screaming coming from the kitchen. I ran out. Found David on the floor. Mouth open. Gasping. The empty orange juice bottle on the counter. He'd tipsy, straight from it. Probably half the bottle based on what was left. His face was bright red. Tears streaming down his cheeks. He was making sounds I didn't know humans could make. Desperate. Panicked. Completely out of control. Water, he gasped. Water. Please. I just stared. Did you drink the orange juice? Help me. The orange juice with the warning label? That said not to drink it? That said it was extremely spicy? I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Call 911. Part of me wanted to say no. Wanted to say this is what you get. This is the consequence of 6 months of ignoring boundaries. This is what happens when you take things that aren't yours despite being asked 20 times to stop. But he genuinely looked like he was in distress. Like this was more than just uncomfortable. Like he might actually need medical help. I called 911. The paramedics arrived 12 minutes later. David was still on the floor. Still gasping. Had tried to drink milk, water, anything to stop the burning. Nothing was working. What happened? The paramedic asked. He drank orange juice mixed with ghost pepper extract. Why would he do that? He wouldn't. It was my orange juice. I mixed it because I like spicy things. He took it without permission. The paramedic looked at David. You drank someone else's food? David couldn't answer. Just groaned. They loaded him onto a stretcher. Took him to the emergency room. I stood in the kitchen looking at the nearly empty bottle of pepper-infused juice thinking about how we'd gotten here. How 6 months of disrespect had led to this moment. I didn't feel guilty. I felt vindicated. David came home 6 hours later. Face still red. Voice hoarse. Walked past me without speaking. Went to his room. Slammed the door. 2 days later, I got served with papers. David was suing me. For $50,000. Claiming I deliberately tried to harm him. That I'd set a trap. That I was responsible for his emergency room visit and all the associated costs. My attorney read the complaint. Looked at my documentation. The photos. The timeline. The 20 conversations where I'd asked David to stop. This is actually interesting. He's claiming you chest trapped the food. But you have clear evidence that you warned him. Multiple times. Both verbally and with a written label. So I'm okay? I think so. But we'll have to go to court. Let a judge decide. The court date was set for 3 months later. David moved out immediately. Stopped paying rent. I had to cover his half while trying to find a new roommate. Posted ads everywhere. Finally found someone who seemed normal. Moved them in. Started rebuilding. But the lawsuit hung over everything. $50,000. For protecting my own groceries in my own apartment after asking repeatedly for basic respect. The day of the hearing arrived. I walked into the courtroom with my attorney. David was there with his attorney. Looking angry. Determined. Like he genuinely believed he was the victim here. The judge called the case. David's attorney went first. Painted a picture of me as a vindictive roommate who deliberately set out to harm their client. Who'd mixed dangerous substances into food knowing David would take it. Who'd caused serious medical distress requiring emergency intervention. My client nearly stopped breathing. Had to be rushed to the hospital. Suffered immense pain. All because the defendant decided to play a dangerous prank rather than handle the situation like an adult. Then my attorney presented our evidence. The documentation of 6 months of theft. The 20 separate conversations asking David to stop. The receipts showing I'd spent over $400 on orange juice that David had taken. The photos of marked bottles proving David was drinking my property. And finally, the photo of the warning label. Clear as day. Do not drink. Extremely spicy. Your Honor, my client took reasonable steps to protect their property. They asked verbally. Multiple times. When that didn't work, they added a clear warning label. Mr. David chose to ignore that warning and consume food that didn't belong to him. The consequences of that choice are his responsibility. Not my client's. The judge looked at David. Is it true that you repeatedly took your roommate's orange juice despite being asked to stop? Well, yes, but. And is it true there was a warning label on the bottle you drank? Yes, but I thought they were joking. You thought a warning label saying do not drink, extremely spicy was a joke? I mean, it's orange juice. How spicy could it be? Apparently very spicy. Since you ended up in the emergency room. A few people in the courtroom laughed. The judge didn't look amused. Mr. David, you're asking this court to award you $50,000 because you took food that didn't belong to you, despite being repeatedly asked not to, despite a clear warning label, and suffered consequences from your own actions? They put it there to harm me. They put it there to protect their property. Property you'd been stealing for 6 months. Property they'd asked you 20 times to stop taking. The fact that you chose to ignore both their verbal requests and their written warning doesn't make them liable for your choices. David's attorney tried to argue. Your Honor, my client suffered serious medical distress. Due to his own actions. If I put a sign on my lawn saying beware of dog and someone ignores that sign and gets bitten, I'm not liable. The warning was clear. Your client chose to ignore it. Case dismissed. Just like that. Over. The judge wasn't even conflicted. Looked at the evidence. Applied basic logic. Dismissed the case entirely. David's face went from red to white in seconds. His attorney looked stunned. Like they genuinely expected to win. Like they'd thought the judge would side with someone who'd repeatedly stolen from their roommate and then got upset taking what wasn't theirs. Your Honor, we'd like to. I said case dismissed. And frankly, I'm considering sanctions for bringing such a frivolous lawsuit. Mr. David, you stole from your roommate for 6 months. You ignored repeated requests to stop. You ignored a warning label. You have no standing to sue for injuries caused by your own deliberate actions. The judge looked at me. However, I do want to address something. While you were within your rights to protect your property, mixing food with substances that can cause medical distress is a risky approach. In the future, I'd recommend simply moving out or pursuing other legal remedies. Understood, Your Honor. That said, the defendant clearly made reasonable efforts to prevent this exact outcome. The lawsuit is dismissed. Mr. David, you're responsible for your own medical bills. And you're lucky I'm not ordering you to pay the defendant's attorney fees. We walked out of the courtroom. David wouldn't look at me. His attorney was already walking away, probably regretting taking this case. My attorney was grinning. That went better than expected. Judge didn't even hesitate. I still can't believe he actually sued me. People sue for all kinds of things. Usually when they can't accept that they're responsible for their own choices. David posted about it on social media that night. His version of events. How his roommate had deliberately harmed him. How the justice system had failed him. How he'd nearly passed away because of my vindictive prank. The comments were split. Some people supported him. Said I'd gone too far. That there were better ways to handle the situation. That mixing ghost pepper extract into food was excessive regardless of the circumstances. But most people saw through it. Pointed out that he'd been stealing for 6 months. That he'd ignored 20 warnings. That he'd been clearly labeled. That this was entirely his own fault. You took someone's food for 6 months and you're surprised there were consequences? The bottle literally said do not drink and you drank it anyway? This is like touching a hot stove after being told it's hot and then suing the stove manufacturer. One of David's friends reached out to me directly. Hey, I heard about what happened. David told us his version but I wanted to hear yours. I sent them the documentation. The photos. The timeline. Everything. Holy situation. He's been saying you randomly decided to harm him. He left out the part where he'd been stealing from you for half a year. Of course he did. Because that would make him look bad. It makes him look terrible. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. More of David's friends reached out over the next few weeks. All of them shocked by the full story. Several of them apologizing on his behalf. None of them defending him once they saw the evidence. David's social media posts got more desperate. Posted pictures of his emergency room bill. Over $2,000. Claimed I should have to pay it. That I was morally responsible even if not legally responsible. You did this to me. The least you can do is help with the bills. I didn't respond. But others did. You did this to yourself by taking what wasn't yours. Maybe don't steal people's food and you won't end up in the ER. 20 warnings and a label. How is this anyone's fault but your own? My new roommate, Jenna, was great. Respectful. Clean. Never touched my food. Asked before borrowing anything. Everything a roommate should be. I heard about what happened with David. That's wild. Yeah. 6 months of asking nicely got me nowhere. One bottle of spicy juice ended it immediately. I mean, I get why he's upset. But also, he had so many chances to just stop taking your stuff. Exactly. This wasn't my first response. It was my last response after everything else failed. She paused. For what it's worth, I'd never touch your food. I learned from my last roommate that respecting boundaries is non-negotiable. What happened with your last roommate? She kept using my shampoo. Expensive stuff. Like $40 a bottle. I asked her to stop. She didn't. So I switched to cheap shampoo and put the expensive bottle in my room. She complained that my shampoo wasn't as good anymore. I told her to buy her own. We both laughed. Different scenarios. Same principle. People who won't respect boundaries need consequences. 3 months after the court case, David's friend Marcus reached out. Hey, I don't know if you've heard, but David's struggling. Lost his security deposit at his new place. Can't find a stable roommate situation. Kind of spiraling. I'm sorry to hear that. He's really angry at you. Blames you for everything. Says you ruined his life. I ruined his life by asking him not to steal my orange juice? No, I know. I'm not saying he's right. Just wanted to give you a heads up that he's pretty fixated on this. Fixated how? Just talks about it constantly. About how unfair it was. How you got away with harming him. How the judge was biased. Honestly, it's getting concerning. I told my attorney. She filed for a restraining order based on David's continued fixation and social media posts. The judge granted it. David had to stay at least 500 feet away from me at all times. That seemed to be the final straw. David's posts stopped. His friends stopped reaching out. The whole situation finally faded into the background. But the story didn't end there. Because apparently David had learned nothing. A year later, I got a message from his new roommate. Hey, you don't know me, but I found your contact through mutual friends. I'm living with David. And he's been taking my food. I've asked him to stop. Multiple times. He just laughs it off. Someone told me you had issues with him too? I sent them everything. The documentation. The timeline. The court case details. Everything. Oh my goodness. This is exactly what he's doing to me. Taking my groceries. Acting like it's no big deal. Getting defensive when I bring it up. Document everything. Every time he takes something. Every conversation. Build your case. Because if it escalates, you'll need proof. Did you really put ghost pepper in your juice? I did. After 6 months of asking nicely. After 20 separate conversations. After every other option failed. And he still sued me for it even though I warned him clearly. That's actually kind of brilliant. Maybe I should try something similar. I'm not recommending that. The judge said I was within my rights but that it was risky. Better to just move out if you can. I'm stuck in a year lease. Can't afford to break it. Then document everything. And if he takes your stuff after you've asked him not to, that's theft. You can pursue legal options. They thanked me. Disconnected. I never heard back about how it worked out. But it made me realize David hadn't learned anything. Hadn't changed. Was still the same person who thought other people's boundaries didn't apply to him. Still taking what wasn't his. Still acting like victims were unreasonable for being upset. Some people never learn. My story spread. Friends of friends heard about it. People started reaching out with their own roommate nightmare stories. All variations on the same theme. Person repeatedly violates boundaries, refuses to stop when asked, faces consequences, plays the victim. My roommate kept using my expensive face cream. I asked her to stop. She didn't. So I mixed it with something that turned her face orange temporarily. She was furious but she stopped using it. My roommate kept eating my lunch from the work fridge. I labeled it. Asked him to stop. He didn't. So I made a lunch with something that would upset his stomach. Not harmful. Just uncomfortable. He never touched my food again. Different circumstances. Same basic principle. When people won't respect your boundaries after repeated requests, sometimes consequences are the only thing that works. 2 years after the incident, I was at a party. Someone I didn't know approached me. Are you the orange juice person? I laughed. That's me. I heard about that story from like 3 different people. It's legendary. It shouldn't be legendary. It should be a cautionary tale about respecting other people's property. But it's also kind of satisfying. Like, justice served. Guy steals from you for months. You warn him. He ignores the warning. Faces consequences. End of story. Except it wasn't the end. He sued me for $50,000. And the judge laughed him out of court. Basically. The story had taken on a life of its own. People embellished details. Made it more dramatic than it was. Turned me into some kind of revenge hero. I wasn't a hero. I was just someone who got tired of being disrespected in their own home and took the last option available to protect their property. 3 years later, I ran into David. At a coffee shop. Both of us froze. Haven't seen each other since the court case. Hadn't spoken since he moved out. He looked different. Older. Tired. Like life had worn him down. "Hey," he said awkwardly. "Hey." Long pause. Both of us waiting for the other to speak first. "Look," he finally said, "I know this is weird. But I wanted to apologize. For everything. The orange juice. The lawsuit. All of it. I was immature. Didn't understand boundaries. Thought you were being uptight. But I've had some time to think about it and you were right. I was wrong." I stared at him. This was the last thing I expected. An actual apology. Actual accountability. I appreciate that. I'm in therapy now. Working on why I have such a hard time respecting other people's limits. Turns out it's a pattern. Not just with you. With everyone. And it's cost me a lot of relationships. I'm glad you're working on it. The lawsuit was stupid. I was embarrassed. Hurt. Angry. But you didn't do anything wrong. I took your stuff after you asked me not to. Ignored your warning. Suffered consequences that were entirely my fault. I'm sorry I tried to blame you for my choices. This felt surreal. Like a completely different person than the one I'd lived with. The one who'd laughed at my concerns. Who'd sued me for protecting my property. Apology accepted. Cool. Well. I should go. Just wanted to say that if I ever saw you. Take care. He left. I stood there with my coffee trying to process what had just happened. 3 years later and David had finally learned the lesson. Finally understood what I'd been trying to teach him all along. Boundaries matter. Respect matters. Other people's property isn't yours to take. But it had taken losing the lawsuit, losing friendships, losing roommates, and apparently 3 years of therapy to get there. Better late than never, I guess. What I learned is that some people will never respect your boundaries until they face real consequences, that asking nicely 20 times means nothing to someone who's decided your limits don't apply to them, and that protecting yourself isn't wrong even when the person who mistreated your boundaries wants to play victim afterward.